Hey everybody, Richard Seller back here. Trying to do a weekly sort of hash about recent events, things that are going on in the workplace, interesting topics that have come up. There was an article I recently read about something called, and I just want to make sure I get the name right, it's called Karoshi. And it's a Japanese concept of being worked to death. And the story was that there was a 31-year-old employee who was working, I believe it was something like 160 hours of overtime, and literally died of congestive heart failure from overwork. Scary stuff. And the old expression I always give to people is, nobody ever says on their deathbed, God, I wish I worked more, right? So it brings us to a point of sort of what we do here in the workplace, which deals with employment, overtime, things like that. There's been a big discussion these days of work-life balance and things of that nature. But you know what the biggest problem is? And where employers have really struggled to figure out what to do next is with our cell phones. And our cell phones now connect us to the workplace 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the lines have become blurred between what is considered work time and what is considered on-call time, where your employer can get you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Think about this. How many of you sleep with your cell phone next to your bed? Not a good situation. And the studies show, just as an aside, that the light from your cell phone actually disrupts sleep patterns. And I'm just as guilty as the next person, because as a business owner, when my phone dings, it's generally a client or a lawyer or something else that needs immediate attention. So you become chained to your cell phone, which then chains you to your workplace. So how does this apply to what we do and what the point of this is employers fail to recognize that compensable time, meaning time that you're actually working, needs to be paid. So if you're an hourly employee, for example, and you're in the office from, let's say, 9 to 5, 5 days a week, but then after hours you continue to get emails or calls or inquiries, and your employer is aware or should be aware that you're handling these issues after hours, you're entitled to be paid for that time. And if that time is over 40 hours a week, it's considered overtime pay. So the next question I always get is this: hey Rich, I'm salaried. Am I entitled to overtime? And the biggest misconception when it comes to employment law is that if somebody's paid a salary, they're not entitled to overtime. And the truth of the matter is that's not entirely correct. And here's what I mean by it, okay? Let's assume you're doing what we refer to as blue-collar labor. You do construction work, okay? And you're actually using your hands, and your hands are dirty, and your work boots are dirty every day, but you're paid a salary. You're still entitled to be paid overtime for any hours worked over 40 in the work week, okay? The clarification comes in where somebody's in what's referred to as an executive or an administrative or professional type of job, and they're paid a salary of at least $4.55 a week. Those folks are not entitled to overtime. Examples of that would be, for example, a business owner, a CEO, vice presidents, people who supervise employees who can make hiring and firing decisions. They fall within what we refer to as this executive exemption. Then you have the administrative exemption, where you get folks like claims adjusters. And the true test here, and it's a little bit gray, is that if you exercise independent discretion and judgment during your job duties, and you make decisions on behalf of the company that require you to evaluate different choices and make decisions, you're generally not going to be entitled to overtime. And again, I'm just kind of putting this in a nice little neat package, but there's of course nuances involved. And finally, the professional exemption. Hate to say it, lawyers, doctors, accountants, teachers, and I know I've got a lot of teacher friends, no overtime. If you have a specialized degree, generally more than 2 years, you're not entitled to overtime, no matter how many hours you work. So that's why people in these professional professions, doctors, lawyers, accountants are most often the most depressed because we work such long hours and there's no additional pay for it. So in any event, I saw this thing on, I keep forgetting the term, but it's called Karoshi. Interesting article earlier this month about literally being worked to death. Final point, not preaching. You got to find that work-life balance, guys. I mean, we work so hard, but remember why it is that we work. We work so that we can enjoy our time away from work, so that we have funds to do what we want to do, to be with our families. And in my office, for example, we have for staff, lawyers, I'll tell you, we work hard, we work long, but the staff does not work more than 40 hours a week. We say to them when we hire them, we want you to go enjoy your lives. At 40 hours, get out and go do what it is you do. We've got employees who go to the beach every day. So my point to you is this. Manage your time between work and free. There's got to be a good balance, or else inevitably you may meet the hands of Karoshi. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you tuning in. We'll come up with something next week, and hope you have a great week and a great weekend.